Sorry, interrupted.
Okay, fine. So we'll continue with the loops what we were doing. So we just saw like how do we add a new worksheet, and then we did also see like this particular example to find out a particular date in a given range. Fine. So there we use this particular thing here called as the active range of data. So this was something which was looking in the active sheet dot used range. So this is like, you want to go for the complete cells, which is not null cells, and you want to look for something. Okay, use this, and there we actually wanted to look for the value which contains the today's date. Fine. So we saw with this particular function. Okay, I think the same thing we saw with this particular thing. In this case, what is happening is here, as soon as a particular match has been found, we are telling to go for exit sub. That is, change the color of the cell, select the cell, change the color, get the address, and say exit sub. But here we are not telling an exit sub, but we are telling, okay, even if a matching value is found, that means if any of the cell value is matching to today's date, then okay, update this particular string variable, update this particular integer variable, and format that particular cell, and then you keep going ahead till you go to the last used range cell. Okay, after executing iterating all the used range cell, that means the cell which contains the data, then it comes out and says, okay, so if there is any cell value matching, it says okay, there is some value there. So in which particular cells the addresses are there, and how many times the current date is being found. Fine. Okay, we had stopped till here in the yesterday's session. So today we'll just go one step ahead to this particular thing. Okay, so here, see, I have just written a simple code which is trying to find out a number in a cell, and it has to check whether that number is an even number or odd number. Fine. So how do you find out whether number is even or odd? Just divide that number with 2, and if it is completely divisible, that means the remainder is 0, then it's an even number. If the remainder is non-zero, it is an odd number. Now to check a remainder, we have this particular method called as a mod. Is it? So when you divide, you get a quotient, and it's a 5 divided by 2. So that is like, what happens, 5 gets divided by 2, and you get a quotient value telling that 2.5. Fine. But when I say mod, so after dividing to an integer, this one, it tells me what is the remainder you get it. Fine. Yeah. I want to know whether it is divisible by 2 or not. So we try to divide that number with 2, and if it is divisible, then it is a even number. If it is not divisible, it's an odd number. Fine. Now to check that particular thing, so I just showed you like we have different ways to do the same this one. So one was taking very long time, the other one was taking it was a kind of a lightning speed. Okay, so we'll just see like how exactly we are checking whether the number is even or odd. Okay, and even you can see we are moving ahead. Okay, after checking every cell, printing the value, then again move ahead, print, and it has to, the same procedure has to continue till it finds the last cell which contains the data, okay, in the A1 range. So that is what is the actual task we are trying to do in this particular thing. Let us get into the code of this. So when you look into this particular code, okay, so here we have just written dim I as dim int row count as integer. That means I have just declared one variable of type integer. Okay, and then I have another variable. Okay, this is a variable to know how many rows are there. So this is just a variable to hold that particular value of the cell, which is going to check whether it is even or odd. Fine. So I can say when the data can be long, so I can just use a long, can be a better way. Okay, so if you have very large amount of data, still it will hold. Fine. Then this is a variable just to hold the value. Then first what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find out how many rows are there. So now to find out that, you can see we are using this range of A1. That means what happens, my cursor will go to A1, and there it will go for the current region. That means in that particular region, okay, how many rows are there, it is going to count. So that means your focus when you run this particular macro, irrespective wherever your focus is there, it will just shift to A1. Okay, so this will just shift to A1, and in A1 it just goes control A. How many values are there? So you can see the count is 2006. So that means how many rows are there in this? 2006 rows are there. So that means it will get this value, that is 2006, into this one. So that means it has to iterate 2006 times. Fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is just to get the row count, how many rows are there, so that okay, where till where it has to go, the searching. Then what we do is we just say range of A1 dot select. So then okay, okay, so my focus, after doing this, I say the focus has to be retained in A1 itself. You can see is range A1. So that is, this particular command is just for setting the focus into A1. Then for now I want to start iterating. So okay, in this particular, because it has to go one cell after the other, you know, row by row it has to keep going. So I'm using the loop here. For I is equal to 1 to int row count. What is the row count here? Current region dot rows dot count. So which is actually here we have 2006 rows. So that is going to be the row count. So that means, so I'm going to start this particular counter variable starting from 1 to the row count. Fine. And then I say if active cell dot value mod 2. That means what is active cell now? So right now the cursor is in A1. My focus is in A1. So A1 is the active cell. Okay, since my cursor is in A1, so A1 is the active cell. So I say for I is equal to 1 to int row count. So that means, okay, I want to start from 1. It has to go till the row count. Now, okay, it is an iteration. So the value of I is 1. Now active cell dot value. Active cell right now we are in A1. So the active cell dot value, it is going to fetch me what is the value in this particular cell A1. Okay, what is the value in this particular cell A1? That is going to be my active cell dot value. So now I'm trying to divide this by 2. If it is divisible, okay, so that means that value mod 2, that means it is going to divide this particular cell value with this particular value called as 2. Okay, after when you use a mod, it just tells me what is the remainder. If the remainder is 0, then what I want to print as even number next to this. Okay, so if it is 0, it is, that means if it is completely divisible, then I just say active cell dot offset 0 comma 1. So that means what is 0 here? 0 is your row. So that means don't move the row, let it be as it is, but column, move one column ahead. Okay, in that column I just say what is the value it has to be. So I want that value to be given as even. So that means it see, it retains in the same row, but it goes one column ahead, plus 1. Okay, and there it is going to print the value as even. Fine. And you want to even change the color of that, I can just do that. Interior color is equal to, what is that, even color. I'm changing to red. Fine. If it is not divisible by 2, okay, so in that case what it does, so I just say active cell dot offset. So that means again written in the same row but one column ahead, I want to print the value as odd. I say I want to change the value to green color. Fine. So what happens, it goes to, it selects A1, it gets the value and checks whether it is divisible by 2. If it is divisible by, it says even, if not, it says odd. Then what happens here, you can see after this particular if and if, within the loop, what I'm doing here, I've written this statement. So now, right now active cell was A1. After printing this order A1, so I just say active cell dot offset 1 comma 0. That means go one row down in the same column. In the same column, go one row down and select that particular cell. So that means my cursor was in A1. From there, I'll just go one row down in the same column and make this as an active cell. Okay, and I'll make this as this is what is this code doing. So now this will become as an active cell. When this becomes an active cell, now this becomes an active cell. So now what happens is, so again I is equal to so the value of for loop, you know, it gets incremented with plus 1. So the value of I will be 2. Okay, so that is it goes from 1 to 2006. That's it. This is just a counter. Now active cell dot value. What is the active cell value now in the second iteration? The second iteration, the active cell value is going to be 943. So it is going to divide this 943 divided by 2. When you divide this number with 2, so what is the reminder? You will get a reminder as 1. You will get a reminder as 1 in this case. And then I'll just say, okay, active cell dot offset 01. That means go one column ahead and print the value as even. Okay, then if it is divisible, if it is not divisible, it will print the value as odd. After doing this printing, again what happens, my cursor goes one row down, okay, and selects that. So that means now this becomes the active cell 817. So now it checks whether this value is a even number. If it is not an even number, it prints odd, and then again it goes one row down. So it is going like this till it reaches this particular value, which is starting from 1 to the actual row count in the region, current region. Okay, so on that basis it is going to print. So you can do it. See, it is selecting and then going, selecting and then going. That is why it is taking this much of time also. So it's almost 2000 rows. It took almost 30 seconds plus.
Right.
Yeah. So this is what it is. Okay. This understood with this? So that means we are just trying to find out how many rows, because I'm using a for loop. I need to know how many times it has to iterate. So here I'm trying to capture, okay, how many times it has to iterate by just using this particular current region.rows.count. That means go to a cell and from there try to find out how many rows are there in that particular region. Okay, and then what is the next thing is, I just say range of a1.select. So we are trying to say a1 has to be selected, and then it has to go from 1 to this particular row count. This loop is just going to loop for that many number of times. When it is looping, it is making active cell and trying to find out the value of that and whether it is divisible by 2. If it is divisible by, then what it has to do. If it is not divisible, what it has to do. After doing this, it shifts your cursor to the next row, and then it fetches, makes that as an active cell, because when I say select, that becomes the active cell. And then again fetching the value, checking whether it's even or odd, and then making a next row is value becomes as the active, and then doing the same process. Okay, so now we'll see the second method of doing this particular thing. In the second method of doing this, what is being done in this case is, okay, I've used what row count to find out how many rows are there. Again, this is to know what, to get the cell value, to find out whether given number is an even or odd number. So now this particular method, range of a1.currentRegion.rows.count, this will tell me, like, how many rows are there. Okay, then we are just using this particular for loop, which is starting from 0 to row count minus 1. So you can see here, before in the previous case, it was starting from 1 to row count. Here it is starting from 0. That means it is using an index. It is using an index. Index generally starts from 0. So that means, like, when I say active cell dot offset 0 0, that means the same cell we are telling it to make it as an active. So when I say active cell dot offset 1 comma 1, so that means we are telling it to go one row down and one column ahead. Okay, when you're using this particular offset, we use the index. No, if it is the same, I say 0, one row down, two row 0 1 2 3, we start. Is it? So we are using a 0 to row count minus 1. So that means it has to start from 0. If A1 is 0, the 2006th row will be as 2005. Yeah. So from 1 to 2006 it has to go. So that means if the 1 is 0, then 2006 is going to be 2005. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Now I say if range of A1, you can see here what I'm doing here is, okay, I'm not using an active cell method. Before I used the active cell method in the previous case. So I say range of A1. That means my cursor will be in A1. From A1, I just say offset to I rows. I value first time is 0. That means 0 comma 0. That means A1 becomes the active cell. Get the value of that. Try to check whether it is divisible by 2. If it is divisible by, then print it is a even number. Okay. Now, if it is not divisible, then it is going to print as odd number. Okay. So in that one column ahead. Fine. Okay. Now again, what happens? Okay, this loop will iterate from 0 to 2005. So next time when it is going, so again we are trying to say here range of A1 dot offset I comma 0. See, the first time value of I is 0. The second time the value of I is going to be 1. Okay, the value of I is going to be 1, no? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So then what we are trying to do here is, so I'm not selecting B1 or A2. So we are telling, okay, my focus will be in A1 itself. From A1, go to the offset I number of rows. That means one row down and the same column, get the value and try to display what is the result. Okay. Okay, if it is divisible by even, if it is not divisible by odd, so then again goes here, the value of I becomes 2. So that means the range of A1 dot offset 2 comma 0. So that means my cursor will be in A1 itself. From there, every time we are just using an offset method to go to the specific number of rows in that particular column, get the value and then check. I'm not selecting any particular cells and going. Yeah. So on that basis, what happens is in this particular case, so let me do the same task using a second method. I'll just delete this. Yeah. So let us run this. You can see it is printed in no time. Or you want with the color. As soon as I click on this, you can see immediately it has been printed. Okay. So when I run this one, you can see it is printing. Clear? Hello.
Yeah.
Course is not there.
Is there?
Okay. Okay. See, the difference between the first one and the second one is, in the first case, okay, I am selecting a different row and then trying to check the value, then again selecting and then checking. In this one, my cursor will be retained in A1 itself, okay, and then trying to do this particular job. Okay, so which one is fast? So Francis, so which one is fast, the first method or second method?
Both, no?
Both are faster.
Ah.
Yeah. See, the first method is doing like this. So in the case of first method, it is printing it like. It is taking time. Okay, the second method is going in a lightning speed. Yeah, so you can see finally it got printed. So you can see how much time it took. In the case of first one, it's just taking this much of time to do this. So you can see how much time it is taking. Just to print this 2006 rows, it is taking this much of time. Okay, so whereas in the case of the first method, in the case of second method, it is just printing like this. Okay, so which one is better?
Second one, I guess. Yeah.
In one. See what is happening, it is not relocating your sheets, it is not setting, it is not focusing and all this thing. When the data is large, okay, so we can do it in this particular way.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. The next thing is here, so I'm trying to go with this particular, what do you call it as, finding an empty cell. Okay, see just I just have some data over here, so I want to find an empty cell, so I'm just trying to find. Okay, so when you hit on this, you can see it goes, looks where is the empty cell, it finds the empty cell. So now where do you use this particular empty cell is you want to delete that particular row or a particular this one. So we use this particular empty row. So that means, like, you know, when you have some kind of a data, and if you have an empty row and you're doing some kind of analytics on that particular thing, so it will break the data. So it will not take the complete data, it will just take only the first portion of the data where it finds the empty this one. So it will consider this is a separate set of data, it will not take that. So now when you have pulled the data from the different sources, you would have got some kind of data like this with a lot of empty cells in that and so on. So in that particular kind of a scenario, so what we can do is we need to find out the empty cells, remove those particular things and so on. See, like, you know, in Python, we have a concept called as the data munging. Okay. So data munging is nothing but organizing the data, removing some kind of invalid data and all these things. Okay. So data munging will be learning this in when you go to the data frame concept. That is, we'll be covering that also. It's something similar to that here. So we have some kind of unwanted data, some junk data, or some kind of null values and all these things. So you need to replace that null values and with an alternate value, or you want to remove that particular null values. So that is where exactly, okay, we need to do this kind of operations. So first, before we do those particular operations, we just need to know, okay, is there is a null value in between of that. So you can see, yeah, I have some kind of null values over here. So again, we have some null values. No. So if I just again have some data, you can see in between two null values are there. So I want to stop as soon as finds a null value. So in that case, what I'm doing, so I'm just trying to find out the empty cell. So I have a different ways. So when I click on the first one, you can see it just searches where the null values are there. As soon as it finds, yeah, it says stop. Got it? So if I say no, I filling some data here. So now you can see how much time it is taking. Okay, it is searching, but it is fetching for the null values. As soon as it finds the null values, it stops it. Fine. Now I'll do the same job with the second process. So in the case of second process, we can see as soon as I hit on this particular cell, it directly takes me to that particular cell which contains the null value. Okay, so how do we do this particular thing? So how do we, okay, we are iterating here to find an empty cell. Okay, so if you want to find an empty cell, so we have just written this particular thing. So I say range of A1 dot select. So that means in my data, okay, I'm just looking that, okay, get into this particular cell A1, select that particular cell A1. Fine. So I'm selecting this particular range of A1 dot select. So it is going to focus here. And you can see what is the kind of loop I'm using here. I'm using a do loop until. That is do until loop. Okay. So now in this particular loop, what I'm doing here is do, okay. So that means here what I want is, see if my first cell is empty. If my first cell is empty, I don't want to say like, it's an empty cell. I want the first cell to be empty itself. So I want the first cell to be empty itself. So in this case, you can see when I try to run this, so it will not show this particular, it will not stop at the empty cell, the first cell. Okay. See, like, my cursor is somewhere over here. So it has to stop at A1. It is not stopping at A1. It is going further. So that means, so you can see it is not checking the condition in the start. The condition is checked after the statements are executed. So the first thing, how this particular loops is being used in this case is codes there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, ekdam silent ho gaya tha na. Okay, so like say do loop until. See, first thing what I'm trying to do here is, this is this range of A1 dot select. What this will do, it is focus over here. And we know the do until what happens if I give the condition in the end. Okay, so the statement will execute and then the condition will be checked. Fine. And thing. Now until is what? It is like a reverse of the while loop. In the case of while loop, the while loop keeps on executing as long as the condition is true. Okay, and it stops when the condition becomes false. Whereas in the case of until loop is, it keeps on executing as long as the condition is false, and when it becomes true, it stops. Yes.
Yeah.
The difference between the while loop and the until loop. Yeah. Until will execute when the condition is false and stops when the condition becomes true. Okay. Whereas in the case of while loop and the do while loop, so it executes as long as the condition is true and it stops when the condition becomes false. Yeah. So now, so this is, I'm using an until loop here. So in the until loop, what I'm doing here is A1 is selected. Then I say active cell dot offset 1, 0. That means from A1, I don't want to check in A1. So directly we are telling offset 1 row down. So that is going to shift 1 row down. Okay. And select this particular cell. Okay. So what is this particular command? What it will do is it will go 1 row down from A1 and it will select. That means it will make that as an active cell. And then I say loop until is active of. See, we have a built-in method here called as is empty. Okay, it's a method given by the VBA. Is empty of, we have given up in the parameter, you have given some value. So what is the value? It's the active cell dot value. See, at this stage, the cursor has already come into this particular A2 cell. So now it is going to check whether the value of A2 cell is empty. If it is empty, okay, so if it is empty, then it has to stop. Yeah. So until it is empty of active cell. So if it is not empty, it keeps on going. Okay. And you can see it keeps on going in this particular A1 range. Okay. Thing, as long as it finds the empty cell, and if it finds the empty cell, it stops. So we have not told like how many times it has to execute. We have not found out a row count or anything. So we are just using an iteration. You keep on iterating till you find the is empty cell. If a cell is empty. If the cell is empty, then you stop. Okay. Since I'm trying to do this particular select, so what happens every time it is going to the new row, selecting, then again selecting, then again selecting. Okay, that is a kind of issue what is there here. So that is the reason you can see here. So it just keeps selecting and checking, selecting and checking. If it finds any selected cell as an empty cell, it stops there and says, no, we have found an empty cell. Okay. Clear with this?
Yes,
Any
sir.
questions?
So it will start selecting from the bottom up.
No, it is from top. A1 dot select, no?
No, when it is executing, I see that it's because
No.
the empty cell what is selecting is from the bottom, no?
No. It is ending at the bottom. You can see A1 is empty. Okay, it goes from A1, it goes down. It is going downwards.
That's what I'm asking. So
And top down. No, it is going downwards. Selecting, it is selecting downwards. No, it is moving off. See, A1 is selected first, and then it is using offset and going 1 row down. See,
but which is
offset.
the other cell which is empty, sir? Other than this, what are the cells?
564. So
Okay,
other
what
than
else?
that, A1 is empty.
Acha,
A1
only
is,
A1
I'm
and
not checking
564.
A1 whether it's empty or not.
Uh-huh.
Irrespectively, it will do the same job. So
Okay,
that means since I'm
sorry,
using this particular do until, so first it will execute and then it will start checking. So that means it will not check for the first cell, whether it is containing a value or not, it is not going to check.
so if 100 is empty and 60 is empty, then it will first show 60 or it will still show 564?
It will show 60, no? So if the 60th cell, no?
Huh.
We're talking about 60th
Yeah,
cell is
anything,
empty.
anything at all,
Anything,
anything at all.
anything. So I'm just putting little lower the order so that you can see the kind of selecting and then going. Okay, I just say something like 234. This is empty. Okay, so now if I try to run this, you can see it will go from the top down. Okay,
It's going bottom up, no?
no, top down, no. It
You
is
just
coming
made
from the
one,
top.
or 234 only you made empty, no? Sorry.
Yeah, I made
Yeah,
234.
yeah, yeah. Got it, got it.
There is a different ways. We are just trying to use the different types of functions here. In the case of second one, what is happening is as soon as you click, it is directly just jumping to that place. Okay.
Yes, sir, got it.
In this, what I'm doing here is I just have one counter variable integer. I've initialized to 0. I'm again using a do loop until. Okay. So now every time it goes, I'm just trying to increment the value of I with +1. And here we can see when I'm checking here, okay, see it is do until is empty of, before I use this, is empty of active cell. That means we had selected a cell, whether the selected cell was empty or not, we are checking. But here they're telling, okay, my cursor will be in A1 itself. From the A1, go to the I number of rows down, offset I number of rows and get the value and try to check whether it is empty. That means the first time the value of I is 0. Okay, then SS do I is equal to I plus 1. So that means the value of I gets incremented with 0 is equal to 0 plus 1. So value of I will be 1 at this stage. No? At this stage, the value of I is going to be 1. Okay, so when the value of I is 1, okay, then I say loop until is empty. Okay, so in the previous example, it was is empty of active cell. Now we are not selecting any cell in this code. So, okay, but I have, in fact, I have just used a counter variable, I have incremented. So you can see when in the is empty, I'm using this one. Range of A1 dot offset. That means from A1, offset is what? To move to move I number of rows. So what is the value of I here? The first time iteration, after the first iteration, value of I is 1. So that means I need to move one row down in the same column, get the value of that, and try to check whether that particular value is empty. If that is empty, it is going to stop. If not, this loop will continue. Okay, so the next time value of I is 1. So then it becomes to 1 plus 1, 2. So now it says loop until is empty range of A1 dot offset 2. So that means from the current location, go 2 rows down. Okay, and get the value and then do the check whether it is empty. If it is empty, you stop. If not, again continue. When it continues, the value of I becomes 2 plus 1, 3. So that means here what is happening is, so that means what is happening here in this second method is my cursor will retain in A1 itself. From A1, I just say pick this value and try to find out whether it is empty. Pick this value, try to find out whether it is empty. Pick this value, try to find out whether it is empty. As soon as an empty value finds, you tell it to stop. So that means I'm not going to this particular row, select this particular cell, then make that as an active cell and then check no. Okay, in the previous case, it was moving to this, again selecting that particular thing. But in this case, what you are trying to do is keeping there itself, we are just trying to move, you're not selecting, trying to check whether it is an empty. Okay.
Yeah.
So this one is, so we are finding it much faster. Is it?
Sorry, sir. The second one actually, there was a lot of network issue. So a lot of break हो रहा था.
Why is it? Okay.
ये ठीक है, फिर भी recording है, मैं बाद में सुनूंगा.
Okay, fine. So in the third case, again, what is happening? It is moving, and here it is recorded, with all the cells it has moved, how many cells it has moved. So it just kept a record of it, and then it is going to the empty cell. That's it. A2, A3, A5. Okay, it is just capturing address of which all the cell it has moved. It's just trying to capture that in the third one. Okay, but what method we have used? See, in the previous case, we used a what method? We used a do until. Okay, so in this case, we are trying to use a do while loop. So do while loop is what? It executes as long as the condition is true. Okay, so we can see here, I have just again kept one variable to have number of rows are there. So okay, we are trying to use a for loop to find out the total number of rows in the current region. So current region is in the whole region. Okay, so in this particular A1, so how many rows are there? So it is something like, it is going to focus on this A1, and then it says how many rows are there. Okay, so that is around 2006 rows are there. So in that particular rows, it has to iterate from the start to the end of the row. Okay, that is one thing. Second thing is, within that particular thing, I'm trying to check do while not is empty. I'm doing a reverse of it, because while loop will execute only if the condition is true, and it stops when the condition becomes false. When I say it is not empty means if it contains some data, keep iterating. Okay, so when it contains some data, it keeps iterating. When it is empty, you stop. Okay, so here we have used a not instead of using a just is empty. So in the case of until, we use only is empty. Okay, so active cell dot value. So that means wherever the cursor is there, get the value of that. Try to check whether it's empty. So then we have just used a string variable to capture the address. Okay, just I think only just to know it has moved all the cells. Otherwise, we can see active cell dot offset, move one row down, select that particular cell. Okay, and we are trying to loop. So in this case, what happens is, so you can see it is just selecting, and then it is going. Okay. Now, if I have some data, you can see it is selecting and then it is going. So when I use fine. Okay. The next one is again selecting and then going. So, but here we have tried to use a different loop. So you can see here I'm using a while when loop. So I've used all the three different types of loops. While loop is what again doing. So while, okay, we have checked for the condition. So if first I'm selecting this range of A1 dot select. Okay, then we are trying to say while is empty active cell dot value. So right now A1 is selected. We are trying to check whether that is an active, empty cell. If it is empty cells is false. That means it is not empty. Then okay, move one row down. Select that particular cell and then go. See, one thing is if you use a select, it is going selecting in, okay, then fetching the value of that, making that as an active cell, getting the value, then evaluating it, and then going ahead. So if I'm not using this, if I'm using an offset directly to keep the cursor in A1 and then with the help of the offset, you're moving down and then checking, so things goes much faster. So one thing here, what happens is, if my first row is empty, first row is my empty. So in that case, we can see it stops at the first row itself. Because what happens is, in the case of while loop, the condition is checked first and then the evaluation happens. In the case of do until and what you say, while do while and the do until, the condition was checked in the bottom. Okay, so it was not checking whether the first cell was containing the value or not. But here, so we cannot give this particular condition in the bottom, so it has to be given the condition in the start of the loop. So in the start itself, it checks whether it's the empty cell. Fine. Yes. So
Yeah,
if
yeah.
the first row is empty, it is stopping at the first row itself. I say first row is not, just say it has some kind of a sales data or something. Okay. In that case, find out where the empty cell is there. It is selecting, and then go. Yeah, it is selecting like this. Okay.
Here, do we have the option to see like a row of 2000? If there are 5, 6 blank, we can't find out everything, is it?
Yeah, we can continue ahead. Okay, after this, and then we can find out all the empty cells. Yeah, we can.
Okay, done, done, done.
See here, we are trying to do this particular, select this particular range, and then loop. Mhm. So this has to value. Yeah. A564.
He also left.
What is it? Francis.
Hmm.
Yeah. So this is for your question. So you asked the question like, you wanted this particular to know which all the cells are empty over there, empty cells.
Hmm. Hmm.
So you can see 564th row is empty, 1087th row is empty, 1091th row is empty, 1092 row is empty. This is the empty row what is there in that particular data. So in this, what I'm doing here is, in this kind of scenario, I'm not using the while loop. Okay, if I'm just using a for loop, it has to start from 1. It has to go till this particular number. So that is the maximum number I have here. Okay, and then yeah, the row count I've just told it is like 1090. Fine. It has to go till the end. I don't want to stop in between. So, but when it is iterating, so I'm just trying to find move one row down, select that particular thing, and trying to check the value. So now, in this, what I'm trying to do is we are using if condition here. If is empty of active cell dot value. That means if the active cell value is empty cell, if there is an empty cell found, then I just say string is equal to string that is trying to get the address of that, and just continuing this particular loop. See, this loop I'm not stopping in between. Before I used to stop this loop, no. So using a do while loop, I was used to stop. So using the for loop, I'm not stopping. I'm telling it to go till the end. I'm using the for loop to go till the end. So in between, whenever it finds the empty cell, I'm just trying to capture the address. Or when it finds the empty cell, what has to be done? We can do that particular job. Like say you want to delete the cells, so we can delete the cells. So we can use this particular rows dot delete. Okay, so that particular row will be deleted. So rows of what is that particular? Yeah, row index. What is that index? I dot delete. This is going to delete that. Actually. So it has done this particular job. Say okay. We can see it has removed all the empty rows in between. So I'm just trying to use this particular rows dot delete. So if I use this, I want to delete this. So we are like, you want to delete this particular row. So you need to create the cursor here. So it is from here, it is how much? Um, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 rows thing. So I've just used the rows of I minus 1 dot delete. So that is one row before that particular empty cell. I want that particular cell to be deleted. So you want to delete a particular cell, no? You can just record a code. Okay. So I want to delete this particular cell. Okay. So what I will do, I'll just say record a macro. Okay. So I just say okay. I just say okay. So now I just go to the empty cell and then I just say delete. It's done. So then I want to stop this. So you want to get into the code of this. I just select what is that? Don't tell me. Macro. So it was macro del rows, no? I think here I have some codes here. I'm not able to get into that. You can see selection dot end Excel row down, so it is going 6 rows down, and then I say selection dot delete and shifting that cell up. Selection dot delete is going to delete that particular selected row. Yeah. Okay, Francis. So this is like, you know, what I've done here is, so my 6th row was empty over here. So this code, what it did is it went to the 6th row and deleted. So now how it has done is selection dot end Excel down. So that means it is going till this particular end of selection. So that means it's something like, you know, you're keeping your cursor here and then telling us control down. Okay, so it is gone here. From there, it has to go for the row 6, 6. So that means 6 row down, it has gone from the A1. Okay, it is selecting. Now this is a selected cell. So now the selected cell I'm trying to delete. Hello. Some kind of empty rows. So let me have some empty row here. So I have some empty rows here. So I just have some empty, randomly I'm just giving some empty rows. Okay, you can see there is a lot of empty rows in between. So now what I want is, I want a macro to remove all these particular empty rows. Okay, so this macro will do that particular job. So you can see here we have 1 empty row, 2 empty rows, then again there is an empty row, then again there is an empty row, then again there is an empty row. There is a lot of empty rows. I want to remove those particular empty rows. So in that case, so I'll just run this macro. Yeah, this macro, it says, it is just iterating for every this one, and if there is an empty cells, it just deletes that particular thing. You can see all those empties have gone. Okay, what happened to codes?
He's trying to log in. I think maybe we should stop here. He's not able to log in also.
Oh, he
Anil
also
is not there. She is also
Anil
not
also
there.
has a network issues. His act is not
He's
working.
messaged me. A lot of network issue have been trying to resolve.
Okay, fine. So understood with this one, is it? So now what happens is, like, whenever okay, a particular empty rows, you want to do any task. See, you were just trying to capture the values, address, and all this thing. So this particular thing is, you want to do some operations in that. You want to write some. Sometimes, you know, you want to fill some values. So instead of if there is an empty, I don't want to delete, but I want to say NA, or I want to put 0 in that. So what I do, I just say as active cell dot value is equal to, say, 0. So now any cell which is empty cell, there is an empty cell. When I try to run this particular macro, it just says all the empty cells will be filled with the zeros there. So all the empties are filled with zeros. Okay. So that is like any kind of operations can be done on those particular empty data. Okay, fine. I think we'll stop then.
Yeah, because he is also not there.
Okay, you can try out this example then. Okay, the code you have taken, no?